Hello and good evening to everybody. And for those who are in different time zones, good morning and good afternoon. I would like to welcome you to our online webinar on illegal adoptions in Chile. My name is Regina Zonk. I work for Society for Threatened Peoples in Germany. It's a human rights organization for minorities and indigenous peoples. Before we start, a few technical details. This webinar is recorded. You can watch it anytime in our YouTube channel, and we will be very happy to send the link to it to all of you participants after the webinar. If you have any technical problems, please feel free to contact my colleague Tabea, who is also with us tonight. She's very happy to provide you with any technical support. If you have any questions or comments to our speakers later, please feel very welcome to ask them. And please use the chat function and try to ignore the Q&A, because we will try to collect all the questions in the chat functions. This webinar will be held in English, but if you want to ask your questions in German and even in Spanish, don't hesitate to ask them. We are very happy to translate them. So, what are we talking about tonight? We are talking about Chile's dictatorship and how it continues to have an impact on us today. We are talking about thousands of adopted children who are now adults and looking for their roots in the south of Chile. In the 1970s and 1980s, they were stolen, given up for adoption against their mother's will, even often as newborns. They were sold to families in Europe through adoption agencies. And today, those affected are demanding for truth and compensation. I am very happy to have two women to my side tonight, two activists in Mapuche. And together we will talk about this dark chapter during the military dictatorship in Chile. One of them is Alina Rodenkirchen. Hi, Alina. Alina Rodenkirchen is a Mapuche activist and works as a Mapudungun teacher in Temuco, Chile. Moreover, she advocates for the rights of adoptees, and she's a supporter, colleague, and friend to our other speaker, Maria Dima. Hi, Maria. Maria was born in Chile in 1975, grew up in Sweden, and now lives in Dallas, Texas. As a Mapuche and a person affected by illegal adoption, she also fights for truth and justice. Thank you for having you both here tonight. Thank you so much. Alina, let's start with you. As I said, you are an activist for the rights of adoptees, especially for indigenous adoptees. You work in Temuco in the south of Chile. And this is the very region from which many children were adopted. What happened back then? How could the state steal children from young mothers? Could you maybe explain us a bit about this business of illegal adoption?
Yes, well, welcome to everybody. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for watching this program. My name is Alina Rodenkirchen. Well, during the dictatorship time, it was a lot about vulnerability, and as well it was about maybe this sounds a little bit harsh, but it's like an ethnic cleansing, because one of the most affected region is the Mapuche region here, where a lot of mothers lost their children to social workers, to religious institutions, to governmental institutions, like social workers, like doctors, nurses, everybody who was involved in this child trafficking, the child abduction that has taken place during this time. And first starting in Europe or the States or Australia, first there was a demand, or there is still a great demand for children. So to get the demand fulfilled, there has to be they have to bring children to these countries. So they searched in Chile for women, indigenous women, or women with sometimes living in poverty, or women who were alone, women who weren't able to go back to their parents who got support or something like that, or even who didn't speak the Spanish language because they spoke Mapudungun only. And because of these multiple vulnerabilities, the institutions were able to abduct the children from the hospitals, from like care stations, from like institutions for a daily care of the children. It was very easy because living in a dictatorship, the judges and the institutions there were the authorities who had the power as well. So if as a social worker wanted, the social worker could go into a house with police force and get the children out. Later on, the children were brought to like homes until they were able to fly out. It was able to fly them out to other countries like like Europe, or continents like Europe or the United States. Often, I know that there were like a list for parents who wanted to adopt, like which physical appearance or which physical appearance to say that should have the child, if it could have like a darker skin or not. And on the other hand, here the institution, the childcare institution said that it's like almost impossible. They still say that it's almost impossible to give Mapuche children in adoption in Chilean families because the racism is so big here. It's everywhere. So that no Chilean family would like to adopt a Mapuche child or a child with a darker skin. Yes, I don't know if I forgot something. Maria, I don't know if you can add.
Yeah, so hi. Thank you for having me. And yeah, and so I am like Regina, what you told, like, so I came to Sweden when I was 10 weeks old, and what we have, and today I live here in the US, but I'm still part of the Swedish group for adoptees in Sweden, Adoptionen. SE. And so what we have seen as so far is that if we compare our cases, our documentation, and so on, we can see that many of us that today know that we are indigenous, we have seen that our names, for example, the names from our families have been left out in some of the most important document, and in some documents we have the names of the family, for example. And I think Alina might be able to explain more about like the name and the importance of like our Mapuche names. But just to give an example, like in what happened was that we had this demand from Sweden, for example, and parents, future parents, foster parents, they could send like their wish for a child, like Alina explained, like what color and what age, you had like this list you can just you could fill in. And then they also sent names, like if we find a child, we would like our daughter to be called this, or a son to be called that. So we have seen, like when we compare our documentation, we can see that we were given Swedish names from our future foster parents before anything was processed like in the court as it should. So in Chile, for example, my name is Ingegerd Maria Olsson Karlsson, and you can't find a more Swedish name. And that is still like part of my identity in Chile. Like I am Ingegerd Maria Olsson Karlsson. That is who I am. But I come from an indigenous family and I should, have another name. But in the documentation, it seems like I don't have a mom, I don't have a dad. Like I come from nowhere and with a Swedish name. So if you follow the documentation, you can see signs like that today seems so strange, but you might not have thought about it back like in the 70s. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes, I think these falsifications Maria was talking about, maybe it seems like it's like, well, they just omitted a name or something like that. But in our real life, it has a really great impact. Because here in Chile, we have a kind of certificado calidad indígena. It's like a paper, a document that proves that you are indigenous. And these, like this paper, or yes, this recognition was installed to identify the persons who were able to receive reparation from the state, like they had to give the people the land back, or still they can apply for this or something like that. But in our cases, it's not possible to be officially recognized as Mapuche, as indigenous, because in our birth certificate, the names of our biological first parents were erased. And in this case, one of the requisites, number one, to get this recognition being indigenous, is that in your birth certificate, your first parents, your biological parents, are written with their name, with their indigenous name. So even we have our, even like in my case, even if I had my indigenous name, my indigenous last name, but my birth certificate has this lack of my birth parents. In this case, I can't get this this official recognition, and this means that I can't apply, for example, for a scholarship. I can't apply for Mapuzungun lessons held by CONADI. I can't participate in political processes. For example, what is it in the ILO 169 about the consultation to indigenous people when something is has an impact on their lives. I can't participate in this one because I'm not officially recognized. I couldn't vote because I'm not recognized. Vote in the case that I wanted to vote for an indigenous candidate for the new constitution, and a lot of things. So, or for example, if I want to participate or create a community, an indigenous community with other people, I can't do this because I have not we do not have the recognition, the official recognition, and only people who have this document can participate in these things.
Yes.
Sorry, and if
please add.
So and also when you think like the next generation, like being Mapuche, Alina and I and many others, with 3 children in my case, they have not a string back to the family in Chile. Like, so it's like going to impact. It's already impacting my children and their children also. So this is like really important to stress like what happened and how to fix it, because it has to be fixed.
Yeah. Maybe coming back to your childhood, Maria, you're affected by these illegal adoptions. Maybe you can tell us what happened right after your birth, what happened in the first weeks of your life.
Yeah, so what I have been told, because I was, just to say, 10 weeks when I got to Sweden. So I can mention that I came to Sweden, if I start there, I came to Sweden with some documentation from Chile. And as I said, the birth certificate with my Swedish name, for example, the Chilean passport and so on. And also a court decision that I would have Swedish foster parents. And in that court decision, my mom was mentioned by her name. So I always knew my mom's name, and I also knew I had an older brother back in Chile. So I thought when I grew up that it would be easy and fast to find my mom because I had her name. And I just want to stress that it took me 7 years to like locate her. You had to go through the adoption agency, the Swedish adoption agency that took me to Sweden, and then the Chilean authority for Sename, the Chilean authority for children, and so on. And I had to travel there, and it took 7 years to track my mom. And I know it can be made faster, but I also understand why it took so long, because when I go back and when my mom was found, she told the story, what happened. And at the time she was pregnant with me, she was a live-in maid. So she lived with a family and she worked for them. And she already had a son, and he lived on the countryside with her parents. And my mom's intention was for me to grow up with him on the countryside outside Temuco. And but her employer decided together with a social assistant that they would rather separate me from my mom instead, so I can be given up for adoption. So they tried to force my mom to sign documentation and all of that. My mom, she was young, alone. She came alone to the hospital, and then the social assistant took me from her right after birth in the delivery room. And my mom told me that they tried to force her to sign a document that was a proof that she gave me up. And she denied that. She said no. And they were really like, yeah, you have to sign. And because she couldn't write or read, they said, oh, you can leave your thumbprint. And then they said, you can't even leave the hospital if you don't leave your thumbprint. And she said she didn't do that. So what happened from that was in this town where I was born, it's called Lautaro, and many Swedish adoptees went through the same like places as me. So you might have been born in Temuco or outside Temuco, and then you were taken to an orphanage that was founded by a Swedish man from the church. And I think it was founded in 1965, when I was born in 1975. So they took me there, and I was there for, I guess, a month or so, maybe five weeks. And during that time, a Swedish woman that still lives in Chile, and she was the representative of Adoptionen of Sweden, and she came, because it was not only me, of course, it was other kids also. So she came to the south of Chile, to the court in Temuco, and she got kind of a temporary custody of me and another girl in this particular case. And she made sure that we were registered with Swedish names. So that happened when I was about 1 month old. I got a Swedish name. And then 2 weeks after, the other girl and I, we got like Swedish foster parents in the court of Temuco. And after that, this woman, she took us to Santiago. And in Santiago, this adoption agency that had like women that they paid per child, what I have understood, to take care of a child until they could be flown to Sweden. And when I was looking for my background and my mom, this was back in 1998. I found out who was the woman that took care of me in Santiago. And my parents in Sweden, they had always thought that this woman was like my foster mom, and she like really took care of me. But when I went to her house and met her, she was like, "Oh, I took care of 300 or 400 children. I don't know who you are." And I was like, oh, "Okay." That felt very like strange. And then she told me like, and I asked her like, maybe you have like a register, maybe you have like papers of the children who, you took care of. She said, "No, I have no idea who you were or what happened." So that was very like, okay, this is the reality. But it was like back in 98. So I was still, a bit young and first time in Chile. And also I hadn't heard about like illegal adoptions or, what happened. So I had, one puzzle, one piece of puzzle there and one there. In my case, it wasn't until 2017 when like media in Chile were broadcasting about stolen children. So, but during the years I have had like small doses of, reality, but I couldn't connect them I didn't know what to do or to handle this, because it wasn't back in 2003. I got in contact with my mom and I learned like the true story, but still it was so different from like the facts and the what I knew always, like, so it was kind of strange. So yes, they had kind of a system in Chile, like you had like a certain social assistance, you have certain like institution you went through, and then the ladies. And also, I have to mention that in my case and the other girls' case, the cases that were handled together, they made passports. And the Chilean investigation has told me about this because investigation is going on in Chile. And they were told me about my passport, my Chilean passport, that, yeah, if you take a look at the name and where your passport was made, it was made in Rancagua, not in Santiago where you were. And this particular lady that were issuing your passport, she was under investigation in Santiago. So she had to travel to Rancagua to issue your passport and the other girl's passport. Because I never knew why does my passport say Rancagua. I was from Lautaro and processed through Temuco and Santiago, but still my passport is in another city. So so that is another like clue. And also the Chilean, what we have seen like in the Swedish cases, that we all have or should have like a document from the, what is it called? The kind of the tax authority in Chile that allowed you to leave the country kind of without paying taxes. I really don't understand this document, but you have like an address on that, like this is where you belong. And that address was Telma Uribe's address in Santiago. It's well known like among the Swedish Chilean adoptees. It is like Monsignor Miller 38. So I had that address. I have one address in Lautaro and I had one in Rancagua. So I have 3 different addresses. And I was like 5, how old was I? Maybe 7, 8 weeks old. And why do I have like 3 addresses, for example? And that is things I can see today. But while, growing up and trying to find my roots, I didn't understood it.
So I know, because you told me that you started finding your roots, I think at the age of 11, when your parents, your foster parents, showed you the first time your adoptee papers. Can you tell us how was your way from that age until now? How long did it take you to find your roots?
Yeah, so and I can also mention that is one problem today. So like I said, I was taken from Chile as a foster child. And within 6 months in Sweden, I was adopted according to the Swedish law in Sweden. But that is not the law in Chile. So in Chile, you need to be a foster child for 2 years, and then you can apply for adopting a child. So this is something I know today. Okay, so my parents, they were always very open, and they told me, of course, it was very obvious because with, dark eyes and dark hair and, brown skin, that you weren't like Swedish. So they always told me that, yeah, you come from another family and your mom couldn't take care of you. But when I was around 11, I had more like specific questions. And I was told, before that, I was told like a story about my background. But then at the age of 11, they showed me the documentations. And there, even though I have heard about like an older brother, I saw like it was written, I have an older brother. And at that age, I was like, okay, I have an older brother. He's still in Chile. I'm here in Sweden. And how, I had this fantasy that he would like look for me all over the world and find me. And I was like, how can I, how would I be able to like communicate with him? I need to learn Spanish. So I know that from the age of 11 that I need to learn Spanish, and also that I needed to learn about Chile, like what is Chile? Because Sweden is so far away from Chile, and yeah, it's so far away. So I started to like reading books and newspapers and like really in Sweden back then you couldn't study Spanish until you were in high school. So I had to wait until I was 16. But I was so eager. I was like, oh, I'm turning 16 soon. So, I will be able to study Spanish. So I kind of prepared for like meeting my brother, someday in the future. But it wasn't until, and like I said, also, I always thought, because I had my mom's name. So when I wanted to find her and my brother, I can just do it so easy. But then when I was 20 something, I think I was 20, yeah, exactly 20, when I started back in 95 or 96. So when I started to search, I realized that, oh, this is not going to be easy. This is going to take time. And then I tried to like follow what I was told, like you need to write a letter to the authorities in Chile. You need to do this, you need to do that. And I did what I was told. But after 3 years, I was like, I have to do something else. And then because of a friend of mine who was also adopted from Chile, we decided to go to Chile to study Spanish in Chile, and also to try to get to know where we come from, like, and also to look for our families. So we spent almost 3 months in Chile. And I went to, and it was back then, I went to the foster mom, I went to the court in Temuco, I went to the orphanage, I went to the hospital where I was born, I went everywhere. So, but there was no trace in any place that I have ever been there. So back in 98, I felt like I don't exist in Chile. And that was such a strange feeling, because I was so sure that it was going to be so easy to, find my family. So that was really frustrating. And like I said, I had to look for many more years until 2003, when, I was helped by a Chilean journalist to find my mom. And she was, when I got in contact with her, Ana Maria Olivares, she was like, within a week, she had located my mom, and her uncle went to meet my mom. And I have been asking the authorities and the adoption agency, and like, please help me, and nothing. And then within a week, I had, they had found my mom. So it was very strange, but you had all of those positive and happy feelings that finally finding your family. So that was the focus then, to like find, to, I also got to know that I had a younger sister, and frankly, she was the only one in the family knowing about my existence. So I was giving her phone number, and I took contact with her. So that became the most important thing, like to build the relationship with a sister. So all of the problems, all of the strange clues and pieces was just disappearing because I was so happy. And now everything was, great. And yeah.
What happened then? I mean, I think we are now talking 2003. This is the year you mentioned.
Yeah.
Did you find your mother? When was the first time you spoke to her?
So it must be back in 2003. So the person, the man that went to her house came back with pictures and like the story, what had happened, but also with the information that my mom was in a kind of an abusive relationship and that her husband didn't know about my existence. So I am still today like a secret in the family, even though everyone knows about me, but I'm still a secret. So it's kind of very different from, what you used to when you have been growing up in Sweden. And so, but that is how it is. And I have been speaking to my mom on the phone. I never met her in person. And I have a relationship with all my siblings today. We are 5 siblings in total. I was the third, I know today, number 3. And I was the only one that, I think it was kind of a coincidence, bad timing, bad luck, and all of that. That was the reason I ended up in Sweden. The other siblings, they are still in Chile, and they had like kind of a normal life. But what happened was I had I don't know, 4 years to get to know my sister. I traveled to Chile to meet her, and I also had children on my own, and so on. And my sister, sadly, she passed away from cancer very young in 2007. And back then, I just decided that I'm going to just leave everything now. So back in 2007, I just I think I needed to process everything what had happened the last 4 years, but also grieving like my sister. And so much was also going on, like back in Sweden. Like I said, I had children on my own. My husband and I decided to move to the US, so many things. So, and I wasn't ready I didn't want to, it sounds so silly when you say it, but I didn't want to forget my sister. So I felt like if I'm going to look for my other siblings, maybe, I will forget her or something. So it wasn't until 2016 I started to actually look for my other siblings. And in 2016, comparing to 2003 or 1998, it was so easy to find people like on Facebook or, so I just, wrote one of my brother's names in Facebook, and there he was. And I just needed to write him like a letter or an email and telling who I was. I knew he didn't know he had a sister. So I had to explain like, yeah, I met your sister, and I have been to Chile, but I've never met you, and you don't know about me, but here I am. So, and for me that it was received very, with a lot of happiness and love. I was like the disappeared sister that came back and from nowhere, and they all my siblings was mourning my other sister, but they were like, oh, and now another sister. So it was always so positive. And I didn't want to ask, the hard questions, what about our mom's story? I didn't. So I just focused on getting to know them. So I went to Chile to meet them in person 2016 and 2017 in the beginning of the year. And it wasn't until August 2017 where the news started to spread about illegal adoptions. And then I had to take those difficult talks with my siblings, like, what do you know? What happened? What has our mom said? And so on. So they also needed to face this. And it was also hard for them because they never knew like the whole story of our mother. And they were really like supportive and a big part of this. And I wanted them to know that when I decided to start to speak open about what had happened to me and what had happened to many others, I said to them, I will do that for me, and I won't mention our mom's name. I never do. I never show her pictures and anything. I want to tell her story because she's just one of so many other in the same situation with the same background, the same story. And the same thing, I also said to my parents in Sweden that this is something I need to tell. It's something that is important for other adoptees, other first families in Chile to hear the story. And I said to them also, I will not be talking about you or our relationship because that is irrelevant. What is irrelevant is what has happened. Like children has been stolen. They have been stolen and sent abroad. Of course, they are like inter-country adoptions too, but I know the international adoptions more and so on. Yeah, it has been a big change for, my siblings in Chile. And today the situation is different because it's also not all of my siblings want to face what happened. They don't want to talk about it today. They don't want to know about it. And I have my oldest brother. He's so supportive, and he has been a big part of this, finding the truth journey. Still is, but still, I feel like two other siblings are like, no, we don't want to hear more. It's enough now. Just leave it. It's in the past, and it's so hard because you kind of really would like to have all the support you can have, because it's not easy to sit and talk about this. But I have, like I said, I have decided to do it because I hope that other people can recognize parts that this might be their story, or to make people maybe to think or to look through the papers or starting this process, because I think Eileen also said, this is not about only Eileen and me, it's about thousands and thousands of children. I think the last thing I heard, plus 20,000 children that has left Chile and been adopted, and their I don't know, adoptions, their foster care, what happened, they have to look into this in Chile. 20,000 people, and imagine all the first parents and the siblings left in Chile, all the new families in Sweden or Germany. So there's so many that, are affected by this. And we need to start by, making this kind of personal, but also showing the big picture.
Yes. One question to you, Alina, and also you can comment on what said Maria. Mm-hmm. But I would like to ask about this situation when adoptees find their families. As Maria said, it's complicated. It's not as easy as she thought when she was younger. How is it? Is that also is that happening to other families too?
Yes, I think maybe in every adoptee there's kind of the wish and the imagination that somehow you were, I don't know, you got lost and the family is happy to have you back. But I think it's not necessarily the reality for everybody. And we have to think that we have two totally different kind of persons who haven't shared anything but the birth in their life. There is an obstacle with the language. There's an obstacle with the culture, the habits of every person, like how am I? How is the other person? Do we get along? Normally, everything you passed through your whole life, you haven't shared these experiences with the first family, with the birth family. So it's even both sides would like to get together, would like to join, would like to be a family. And they are, or we are a family, like because of genetics and things like that. But there's also so much life experience that we don't share. So it's difficult always to combine these two lives or these two families, because there are so many differences and so many misunderstanding, maybe because of the language, because of habits, because we have been grown up in another culture, in a total different society where things are made a different way, a different manner. So sometimes when the people do want to fit again, it's not possible, because we are adults. We are 35 up to 50 or more. We are adults, and the most of the people, of the adoptees, has got children. They have got their own family, their own values, and to learn more from the other culture, it's a very, very hard way to get to know each other. And well, the cultural codes, the codes from every society, they're so different, and there are sometimes so many prejudices. Well, I'm living now in Chile, and people say to me, "Oh, yes, but you're so privileged because you grew up in the first world," they say. But without thinking that it's so important to have, and we had a lack of identity, because yes, it's okay. Maybe some of us lived a good life, had education, had maybe a stable home, but not every adoptee had this. A lot of adoptees who came to Europe or the States or some other countries, they suffered violence, violence, abuse, and so many, and abandonment. So this is no improvement to the first situation. I think in our cases, we got luck that it was not this way in our cases, but it's still difficult. It's still a struggle, because all the time we had in our life, we can't just go back in time and get this time back to learn to live in the society. We can't. It's just like this, and we have to grab every piece of the culture, every piece of our identity, with I don't know, with a lot of effort. With a lot of effort and suffering, because we always think about the time we lost. With yes. So it's really difficult, and there are these prejudices from both sides, because sometimes when you're living in, I don't know, in Germany and Sweden, Finland, or Italy, the people, they can tell you as well, why are you complaining? You have everything here. You are living here. What would have you been living in Chile? Maybe you didn't have an education. Maybe you already this or that. Well, but it's not there for them to speculate. It's what it is, the reality, and what we are feeling. And our feelings are real, and our feelings searching for the identity, they are real as well. And being Mapuche, it's like another component that is kind of difficult, because it's such a complex society, the Mapuche society, with a lot of protocols and profound knowledge, and very interesting and nice language. But it's very difficult, everything, to understand, because, well, it's a struggle. Yes.
And also to add, because I have the what we hear again and again and again is like when you finally, if you're lucky, you find your family and you're welcome in the family, still you have the language, like the barrier, like the language. How can you get to know people if you can't speak the same language? Like you can have, and also like if you look in your life, like most of the time you have a life in the country where you live, like might have, you might be married, you might be working, you have children, and then at the same time you want to get to know and discover like your history, your family in Chile, and you're very far away, and how can you do that from that distance on the language that you don't know, or you don't understand? And then also to, like, I planned, like back in 2016, because of one of my sisters, she passed away so young. I was like, yeah, I have to go to Chile like once a year. Like, so I have that, I will give that to myself. So I have 2 weeks each year to be with my siblings, and to get to know more about, my family. And I did that, but still then came Corona, and that affected everyone. And then you feel even more that you're so far away, even more than you've thought before. and now, last time I was in Chile was 3 years ago, and I speak Spanish. Like my siblings, they never learn Mapudungun or so, but we speak Spanish. But you are so far away, and how much, you are still in the phase when you are, getting used to each other, getting to know each other. And, I'm turning 47. So, not getting younger. so say it's, you have the distance, you have the language, and most, the culture, and so much, and it takes time. It takes so much time to get to know a person. And especially, like, I don't know, especially, but also family members, you were supposed to grow up with them, and they are so different from you, and they look at you that you are an alien sometimes, because the things I do with, my way, and because I grew up in Sweden and think that, men and women are equal, and, it's okay, my husband cook, and they think he's crazy because he's cooking. I don't know, I just exaggerated, but still, you have so many differences, and but also so much in common. You have so much love, you have so much support, and so, but you have you have to face all the years you lost, and then think about the future. How can we do this in the future? I will turn 48, 49, and so on. And how will I include my Chilean family in my life? How will they include me in their life? Because we live in different worlds. So that is, I'm happy and I'm sad at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an obvious question, but maybe to just give words to it. What was stolen to you?
Elena.
Well, I'm living now here, but I struggle every day with everything. And I think there's no day in which I'm not struggling with something. Even with Spanish, I can speak good Spanish, but I'm working here, so my work language is Spanish, but not only Spanish, but Mapudungun as well. And sometimes I think I'm crazy. I'm in my birth country. I'm in the land where I should have been always, but I can't express myself properly, probably because I don't know, in Germany we have so many words I can't express here. And I think it's kind of a lack of words I do have here constantly. because I don't know them and because they do not exist in Spanish. And regarding our Mapuche identity, this is a lot worse because it's so different from the Chilean society. It's totally it's another world, it's another society. And there are other codes, social protocols you have to know, you have to do living beyond Mapuche. So sometimes I feel I can't do it because it's so difficult to do everything. And for example, my parents never motivated me to learn to like cook properly or things like that. So here it's so important that in the household, when a person comes, you are able to cook like I don't know, so many dishes, and your visitors get served, and everything is okay, because here you express everything with food, and it has to be abundant. It has to be a lot of food. And for example, in Germany, I was a vegan. And here it's simply not possible. Here you have to give the biggest piece of meat you have to prepare and to give it to the visitor, for example, that the visitor is feeling that you appreciate him or her. So I can't do all this stuff. I can't do it. I really try, but it's so difficult. We have our own religious beliefs. To understand them, well, I think you only can understand them in the language itself. So I am studying Mapuzungun to understand everything what's going on around me. What is my responsibility here being Mapuche? What is my work here being Mapuche? What do I have to do? It's not just easy, or like maybe some hippies would say, oh yes, we love the Pachamama and everything is nice. No, it's not like that. The more knowledge you have, the more responsibility you have. And it's not like, I don't know, I put some candles here, some candles there. No, it's not like that. It's responsibility, and it's just the life you have to try to understand on a way of living. You have to try to follow, but it's not easy, because there's just maybe because you gave the plate or the mate with the wrong hand to a person, and this already means something, and maybe I offended the person without knowing it. So every day is a struggle. And sometimes I really think, well, why couldn't I just grow up here and know everything? I see other persons doing all the things I struggle with such a, it's so easy for them, because they always did this. They always knew it. And yes, being Mapuche, we have so much spiritual responsibility. You only get to know this responsibility, knowing Mapuzungun, knowing living the spirituality as well, and it's really hard.
Yeah, and I think from you, Alina, because you live there, and you know, I am not, I'm not even, I don't know, I'm so far away from where you are, but I still feel like when I'm trying to understand and explain also to others, like when I came to Sweden in 1975, there were like 2 lines about my mom in Chile. Like she was poor, she was living maid, and I had a name, and I always thought, oh, that's a strange name. why isn't her name like Gonzalez so I can, pronounce it. So I was always like kind of wondering about the name, but I didn't think about it. And then when I went to Chile in 2019, I went to Chile with my adoptive brother that had found his family, and so his family, his half siblings, they are also kind of, if you have to go into like details, but they were, from Mapuche origin. So they asked me, but you're Mapuche, aren't you? And I was like, yeah, I know from my mom's side. Yeah, I am. And they were like, oh, so why don't you learn Mapudungun? I was like, yeah, but how? How? And they were, one of the, brothers were trying to teach me, how to count and how to say, certain things. And I had this, oh, this is interesting. And oh, this, I should know this. And the family, explained to me, different things about, this area, this, and then the spirits here, and then this and that. And I was like, wow, this is another world. And I met Alina there for the, in person for the first time in 2019. And I came back to Sweden and so many other things, but I decided to take this DNA test. Because my mom never wanted to tell me about my dad. But I was like, but I will, if I do the DNA test, maybe I can figure out more about, the other half of me. And I got the result before Christmas 2019, and it said, so it doesn't say like you are Mapuche, but it said like you are in kind of, yeah, in short word, that you're indigenous. And they showed you, where more or less where you're from. And then when it pointed at, I think it was 98.7%, Meso Andino something, I was like, wow, that must mean that my dad also is Mapuche. And that makes me, really Mapuche. And I was like shocked because, okay, if I am indigenous and back then I was a little, 44. So if I am, 40 plus, learning that I'm Mapuche, okay. So, and my kids, they are also growing up. So what is, the responsibility for me? My kids will never know anything if I don't look into this. If I don't try to, it's one thing, Alina, you live in Chile and you are taking part of, a society in totally different way from me. I live in Dallas and I'm like, again, I'm so far away, but I still feel like I need to learn as much Mapudungun as I can from here. I need to study and learn, because if I don't do that, who is going to teach my kids about our, like, what we come from? So I feel really that it's something that is really important. And like I said, I'm happy. I'm a language teacher. I teach language. I teach Swedish and I teach like Spanish for beginners, and figuring out Mapudungun. It's a, I don't know. It's a big puzzle, and I might have like 2 pieces right now, but still, it feels so important to study and trying to learn. And like Alina has been patient and been working with me for a couple of years now, and it's a process. It's a never-ending process, and but what can I do? But I still think it's important, and I'm trying to think like, for every word I learn, for every like detail I learn, or Alina tells me, or so I getting back a piece of me that has been taken from me, because I really feel that when they erased like my background and everything, so I could be adopted, they took everything. And what can I do today? Yeah, I can try to get, small piece, at the time, and try to put everything together. But it's going to be for life. It's not going to be fixed tomorrow or next year. This is for life. And I think it's important that more people like me and Alina, they learn, their truth, and that we together, because we are stronger together, that we all kind of work together to get our rights back and our identities back, and so yeah.
Yes, because when we think about the number Maria said, about 20,000 persons being adopted abroad, and one of the most affected areas is the Mapuche area. Maybe there are 10,000 or 5,000, or I don't know, or more, maybe, I don't know. But there's so many Mapuche out there not knowing their Mapuche. What does this mean for the statistics here for the population? And thinking about this number, this is kind of a generation being erased here from statistics, from everything, because not only changing the name. So in the case of Maria, with her Swedish name being written here on her passport, her Chilean ID, there's no way how to recognize the name as indigenous. So in Sweden, I think there are 2,000 adoptees. I don't know how, maybe the majority of them are Mapuche as well. And then we have already, I don't know, 1,500 of identities, Mapuche identities erased here from Chile. And this is a lot. This is a lot, because we are like 1 million, 1.5 million Mapuche here only in Chile. And having like 10,000 more, this is kind of a human rights violation against, it's like an ethnocide, because we are left with nothing. Our families are left with nothing as well.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe we can now talk about the situation now. What has to be done to bring light into this business of illegal adoptations, and what has to be done in the future to bring at least a bit of justice and recompensation for affected people. So maybe Alina, you can start with the Chilean side, and Maria, you can go on what is the Swedish government doing and what are they not doing.
Maybe we can start here with our recognition. Recognition that we are indigenous, that we are Mapuche. We wrote like an idea for an article for the now happening constituent assembly here, that for example an DNA exam could be valid to get this document of the calidad indígena, that we are indigenous, for being recognized. Or that maybe our documentation, the documentation we do have, could help us to be recognized as indigenous. Yes, but I think there's still, I still not know if they have approved the article or not, or if it's just like before. So what we need as well is that the judges, the doctors, the social assistants, social workers, that they can be identified and judged. There has to be a trial, because I'm living in a Mapuche countryside, and on the other side of the road there is living this judge who made the, I don't know if your document, yes, who approved that Maria and other like Marion could leave the country. She's living there, and I have to pass her house every day. I think of it every day. And this is kind of something that bothers me, because it's not that I can live like a happy life and like, I'm here, nice. No, I have to see this house, and this is like a mansion. It's not like a small house. No, this is a mansion because she traveled to the countries, because she got money from the countries. This is a very rich person who during the dictatorship had a lot of power, abused her power, intimidated mothers, intimidated the mothers, and with deaths that she will send people to kill the mothers if they want to get their children back. And there's no justice, there's no trial, there's nothing to get this woman before a court.
Yeah, and I can say her name. So Tatiana Roman Beltramin, the judge in Temuco, and she was like handling all the cases to Sweden from Temuco, because the Swedish woman who handled our cases, she was a friend of her. So you had this corrupt system, corrupt people, and yeah, that is her. Yeah, still living in the area. So if we if we look at Sweden, there's so much. So we have, for example, we have like when we have discovered, that something might be wrong, in our background, because there is a group, it is an investigation going on since 2017 in Chile. You have a judge. At the time you had 2 judges, now it's 1 again. You have police looking into this. We from abroad can fill out a document and ask them to look on our cases. So that is something that I see as very positive. But what is it going to lead to? What is going to happen? I don't know. Because, for example, you still have the judge living in her nice house. You still have the Swedish woman that took 2,000 children, with her alone, 2,000 children. Then we have 200 more. But 2,000, like one person, took the children through the system in Chile, and they came to Sweden. And she's still living in Chile. And she's too old, or she has Alzheimer's or something. And she is probably not going to be punished for anything. And also she brought, money to her family, and, their kids probably went to, nice universities and had nice lives. Not probably, they did. And so on. So they can still live on that money they made out of selling children, because that was what they did. And okay, so if we go to the Swedish part again, so we in Sweden that came to Sweden, we can send our documentation. And where is our documentation? Where can we find it? Yeah, the Swedish Adoption Agency that took us to Sweden. We have to ask them, please, can I have my documentation? And then they're going to send you that, because they own the rights of our documentation, because they were handling the adoptions. Okay, so who guarantees that when I ask for my documentation that I get all the documentation I need so I can send it to Chile to the investigation? There are so many documents missing, and we forgot it in the, I don't know, we forgot it there, or so this is such a big, like, it's kind of a joke, but it's a big obstacle in all of that. That first of all, we have to ask the adoption agency that was part of taking us to Sweden for our documentation. Then another thing is they say, even though like in Sweden, according to the law, how they look at the law in Sweden, they say that, yeah, you were kidnapped, but that happened so long ago. So no one can be punished for that today. and it is so frustrating. Like we all know what happened, but still you can't do anything. And I am not like, I'm a teacher, so I'm not I don't know the law, but there must be ways to kind of investigate this, to say that, okay, this, I don't know, this authority was responsible for that, those for that, and okay, how can we move forward? What do you need as like a victim of child trafficking? What do you need? And we have mentioned a big barrier, big obstacle is language. We need help to communicate with our families. If you happen to find your family, if your parents are still alive, we would really need our help with the language. And then we come to this about names. Like, I know my family name. I can trace my family back to 1881. I can trace through our last name. But in Sweden, I came like Ingegerd Maria Olsson Karlsson. So I don't have anything to do with my Chilean family, with their names. And that is many cases. And then we have many examples, because of course, not everyone that was taken from Chile to Sweden ended up in the same city. So people living in different cities, in different, what do you call it, like counties with different rules. So if one person want to kind of change the name, like back to have the mom's last name from Chile, if you live in one part of Sweden, that could be accepted, but you have to pay. You have to pay to change your name. And then in another part of Sweden, you can be denied because no, there is no strings, between you and your birth mom. And so you have so many, like, if you call it small obstacles or like formal obstacles, but still, if those things would be, easier to handle, if we got more support, it would be easier to continue to kind of living your life, because we can't go back in time. And you also have this with us living in Sweden or Norway or Germany, so far away from the family. And you need to go there to get to know them and to learn more. And how do you do that? Yeah, you have to pay. You have to buy a ticket to go to Chile. And how are you going to, how are you going to do that? And how often? So there's so many things. And I guess we came to Sweden or to Germany or to US because of someone was making money. And today we are stuck where we are because of money. Because now we have to pay the tickets, we have to pay the translator, we have to pay the government to change the names, we have to do all of this, and it's about money. So I would say, like, if you ask the question, yeah, somehow they need to investigate this, they need to say, we did this wrong, and now we're going to pay. So I think there's a responsibility in Sweden that they actually take, like, this role. And I don't know how, I don't know exactly, what to do, and if they have done something similar in other cases, but you can see, like, you have the problem with the archives, with the documentation, with the names, with the language, and being so far away.
Yeah, just a quick reminder to our participants, time is running, maybe you see it, but please feel free to send any questions or comments to our chat. We will try to include them in the time we still have. Yes, Alina, do you want to comment anything? Or no? If not, I would have another question. So you're both adoptees, but voice that is missing today is the voice of a mother, of an affected mother. Can you tell us a bit of that? Can you tell us a bit how that life of those mothers went on? How is their situation today? Do you know anything about that?
I know. So for example, through my adoptive brother, I have getting to know like his mother in Chile, me as an adopted sister, and her as a mother. Or I also, so in her example, she has told me about what happened after, like what happened after your child is declared dead when it's 2 days old at the hospital, and then 44 years later learn that your son is alive and was raised in Sweden with other parents. And she always mourned him, thought he was dead, and then all of a sudden he comes back, and like the process she's going through, like she has tried to explain that to me, and that has been very like like getting to know her and her story, because she's very verbal and telling what she thinks and all of that, and to follow her process. Like I went to her to the hospital in Tibuco because she was thinking like me in a way, to find proof that she has been there and that she gave birth to my brother. And then she was, she was told that no, we don't keep any records. So there's no proof kind of in Chile that she gave birth to this child that died and was taken, from Chile. So I think they are going through their process, and it's, you also, I don't know, Elina, I think you also have met a lot of mothers and fathers or siblings that are looking for children, disappeared children, because they have been told that they died, or they were just stolen, from their arms or from an institution, and the pain and the trauma has never been, I don't know, has never been treated any. And still, after reuniting with your child, as I understand, there is no system for a mom or for a, brother or anyone to handle that. So maybe they are a little bit more in Sweden, even though I'm very critical to the system, like how you are faced. I know I've heard about people trying to reach out and to find a therapist, for example, to sit down and talk about what had happened after finding out they were stolen from the family, and being told by the therapist that, oh, your mom must be lying. So I know you have that problem, in Sweden, and I don't know about the system in Chile, but, I don't imagine there being any like support. Alina, you probably know more about that, but yeah, they are going through their process, their trauma, and we are doing that also. So it's like two, like parallel, and kind of similar pain and sorrow, but a lot to handle.
Yes, I think in a lot of cases, the mothers or the families, they are still traumatized, even if they haven't told anybody, but somehow the family is traumatized, because sometimes the mothers or the families, they do have to face like mental illnesses or depression, or because of this lost, and not only the families but the adoptees as well. And in the case they found their child, the adult now, I think they are always like speechless, incredulous. How could this be that my baby who was dead is alive? And it's like something that can't be true. It's like something that's so strange that it's like not even the I don't know, the greatest fantasy movie could like invent something like that. It's not out of reality, and it's so real. but I think nobody can't really process it, because it's so cruel that you can't process it without help, I think. And here there's no help. There's no help for the moms.
And I'm also thinking about, I see in the chat that we have a lot of, I guess on both sides, but because I'm adopted, I know that world better, but I know, without mentioning any names, but I've been trying to help a family in Sweden where the adoptee died. So the adoptee died, but they still want to know, like, was our child, our adopted child, was he or she, so affected by the adoption that he or she, like, how should I say it? So is it why he or she isn't alive anymore? And then to go and try to find the family in Chile. And I'm just imagining, like, finding out about, like, maybe my child didn't die, because many moms were also told that the child died in the hospital, and then learn that, no, your child, went to or was flown out to I don't know, to another country, and then your child died. So even though he didn't die or she didn't die in, like, after birth, but when he or she was 16 or 24. So you have, there is so much. And also all of us, looking, and even though we are getting older, we are still that little child trying to find our families. And I don't know how many times you find the family in Chile, but the mom has already passed away, or a sibling, or so it's so, I don't know, it's so many really hard and tough situations you can be forced to face because you want to know your background or your, it's hard.
Maybe another obvious question, but is there anything you can do that people can rest? Affected people can rest now? Or not?
So I have had, so in my case, since I found out about this, like in 2017, and like, okay, this is what happened. I have been trying to in my way, together with others and alone, trying to push this. So in my imagination that, because I still feel that this is a little bit handled in Chile. You have the, like a crime investigation going on. So like I said, I don't know what it will, get to in the end, but still they are investigating. I have left my testimony, my mom, and so on. So, but I feel like in Sweden, there is so much being covered up, being not talked about, being lied about, being, I don't know, not handled at all. So I have been kind of, I know in 2019, I thought that, I don't know, that the authorities, that the police, that something would starting to happen in Sweden. And I was like, okay, when someone else, like the state, when the police, when someone takes responsibility, I and other adoptees that try to force something to happen, we can rest. But still, after now, it's 2022, I don't think that will happen, because there is an investigation going on, but we have found so many, like, strange things, like, what are they investigating in Sweden? What, and they have already told us that they will not punish anyone. They will not look into my adoption. They will look into adoptions, like the big picture, but still, what will come out from that investigation? And the police has already closed the door and all of that. So I would really like for some authorities, to take responsibility and to do what's needed to do, investigate and like Elina said, the people that has done this, you need to be able to punish them, because I think you will feel, okay, I think that will give some kind of closure, but I don't know. It's hard.
Another question. I also would like to talk only a bit about the foster parents in Europe. Why did they never ask about the history of those very, very young children? I mean, many of them were too young to be adopted. They were only a few weeks old when they came to Europe. Do you know why they never ask why this can be legal?
I think they could be about different kind of situations. Maybe one group didn't care. Maybe one group thought that, oh, I am doing this adoption through this agency in Sweden, Adoptionen, so everything must be okay. Or another group like, but this is my child now, so I don't want to know. So I think you have, different kind of people have probably acted, differently. And we know after those years that some parents has paid money to get a child, even though you shouldn't pay that much and so on. So I think, you wanted to think that you did something good. You did something good for children that didn't have a family. And then you might not really wanted to know where the children came from. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now, because our time is running out, I would come to my last question. What is that you want to convey to people who think they might be illegally adopted?
I would say that so I always tell people to please contact the investigation in Chile. So you have like online document you can fill in with the information, and you can ask them to look at your case, because they have seen so many cases, so they can see maybe an address, maybe a social assistant, maybe this date can tell them something. But I always say that if you have question and if you're not sure, and if you dare, because you will probably be told that something something isn't legal or something must be wrong here. But if you feel like you can handle that, you use like those people that know this. That is because they have been working on this since 2017. And I don't know for how long the investigation would be going on, because they said 2 years first, and then I think they said 5 years. So I don't know for how long they will be doing that, but still, that is my best advice, to contact them, to fill out the information and contact people who knows about this. Yeah.
Yes, and every person has got like an own time, his own process. It's difficult to force a person, even it's so important to know, but like every person has to feel strong enough to get through this, because normally it's not like a happy story. It's not maybe a happy reunion with family. Maybe there are so many other situations, other contexts that you didn't even imagine. So everybody has to be like, yes, strong and ready to face all of this. But I think always it's so important that you get to know who you are, or get to know like the other part of you. Maybe you can understand something a little bit better, but it's always up to you if you want to go this path.
And yes. I would also say it's good to like to talk with others, to talk to others, other adoptees that maybe has started the process before you, that has been in this longer, that you can share thoughts. And even though that person might not have the answers, but to talk to someone else in this, like in a similar situation, to have someone, if not an adoptee, but someone that could be supportive, like to be there for you, because the process isn't, like Alina said, the process itself isn't easy, and then you don't know what you will find, and you have, even though it's hard, you need somehow try to prepare for, you know, that it might not be like this happy story. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you also for the comments in the chat. And I think we will come to an end now. For me also, there's nothing left to say. I want to say thank you to you for sharing your stories again. I mean, I know them, but still always listening to you is very impressive to me. And I know about all your work and activism always, and also in the future, to bring a bit more justice into these cases, because these cases are, it's just, it's horrible. It's complete injustice what happened there. And yes, I hope you participants agree. And if you have any comments to this online event, feel free to contact us. We'll provide you with any information. And for me now, there's nothing left to say. Thank you, take care, and good night.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, yeah.